1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Budding Report. Good morning, Melissa, wearing your beautiful blue dress.
Well, you know why I'm wearing blue, don't you?
I do know why you're wearing blue. And I know why Chris is wearing some blue, too. So we do film a week in advance. So we are the day after election right now, and right now we don't know who the president is, although it's looking pretty clear to me when I added up the numbers. But, it's still not called. But how are you feeling? Did you deal with stress?
I did deal with stress. Thank goodness for CBD oil and amongst other things. But yes, I'm hopeful. That's all we can be right now. Is regardless of who wins, we just have to keep moving forward and be hopeful. And we did see a lot of movement for cannabis, so that was really exciting as well.
That is very exciting. Chris, how are you doing down in Austin today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot better than I thought I'd be doing last night when this all happened. I thought that it was going to be, looked like Trump when I was going to bed, but now it's looking like Biden and the cannabis measures passing. I just think that's fantastic for America. And even though Blue lost a few House seats and not going to take the Senate, I think that getting Trump out of there is just vital and for humanitarian purposes. So I'm pretty happy today.
Good. Glad you're happy. And Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Things are moving forward with the clinic that we recently opened out here in Indianapolis. So hopefully we're going to make an impact on a lot of the individuals suffering from opiate addiction out here.
Excellent. And were you glued to the news last night, or did you take it in stride?
I went to bed early. I think it's well known that, or maybe not for our viewers, but I'm of the libertarian independent viewpoint. So I just figured if I'd wake up and it was one or the other, I would be able to deal with it.
I'm totally with you. I was disappointed in the libertarian count. I was hoping that more people this time around would vote that libertarian ticket so the party could get some advertising dollars and maybe a voice in the debates. That's what I really wished I could have gotten. But pretty low voter turnout still for libertarians, about 1%. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, it was. It was a little over 1%.
So our guests today are Marie Montmarquet and Maya Roffler, and they're on. So if they want to join in for the discussion of the news, we're going to add a second news article today because of what happened. But Christian, it's a medical topic today that you picked. So take us away.
Certainly. So we're going to change gears a bit because the past couple of weeks we've been doing news that's much more kind of based on political, legal discussions or industry based. And so this time it's going to be back to more of the medical focus. So let me just open this. So this article that I'm going to discuss quickly is entitled "Cannabis May Improve Liver Function in Patients with Obesity." All right, so first we got to do a really quick overview to bring people up to speed. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is the most common chronic liver condition in the United States. It's estimated that about 25% of adults in the US actually have what I'll refer to as NAFLD. Now there's a more progressive and aggressive presentation of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that's actually called steatohepatitis. That we'll refer to as NASH. So NASH affects 5% of adults in the United States. And the concern with NASH is people that have that are much more likely to progress to advanced liver disease and die of liver-related causes. So recently, research suggesting a protective effect of cannabis on NASH was presented by Dr. Ashibi of the Soger Hospital in Chicago through the virtual annual meeting of the American College of Gastroenterology. So, performing a retrospective cohort study, these researchers compared disease stages in non-alcoholic liver fatty disease patients who self-reported as cannabis users or non-users. And what they discovered is a small but significant decrease in prevalence of NASH in patients who use cannabis. So the major take-home message from this study is that cannabis may in fact have a protective effect against liver injury that's caused by inflammation. But we do want to still perform more research, and it will be necessary to do so to demonstrate more of a causative role for cannabis, because right now it's just an association, but it's an exciting development.
So, Christian, one thing that I've gotten out of watching Israeli scientists is that one strain of cannabis isn't the same. That matter of fact, you can grow one strain of cannabis in a certain type of dirt, and it will, say, help somebody that has autism, and it will calm them down. But if you grow that same strain in different dirt, that it could have a reverse effect, and all of a sudden they're even more aggressive now. Do you think that will the type of strain will play a role in how this and other medical issues are dealt with in the future?
Yeah, I think certainly, because what you're referring to is the fact that there is just a complex, synergistic interaction of a variety of cannabinoids and terpenes, and I would seem to think that whatever the soil composition is influences the actual development of those specific cannabinoids and terpenes. So that in turn would influence whatever kind of synergistic effect, which then would have, the potentiation on how it might affect autism if it's grown in one way or another. And then we're talking about all kinds of ratios within individual strains, right? And I think that's going to be a real exciting aspect of the future of cannabinoid medicine, is teasing out all these really intricate and complex interplays between everything going on in the cannabis plant and optimizing it for specific conditions.
That's got to be more difficult, especially with running controls. I mean, when a new pharmaceutical comes out, you've got a very stable product that you're testing using controls of different people. Now we're dealing with actual controls on the product itself. So I could see that being a little bit of a stumbling block. But again, by going all natural, that seems to more than make up for it, in my opinion.
I am so excited about natural cures over big pharmacy. Well, I wanted to add another news topic into today, and that is that Oregon has passed really good news. Four other states passed their cannabis legislation allowing recreational, I believe, cannabis. So that's really exciting. But what really stood out to me today, and I want to have as a discussion, is Oregon has decriminalized all hard drugs. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a great move because, I mean, we see the progressive criminal justice ideas when you talk about reimagining criminal justice. The crime that really doesn't have any deterrent effect is punishing people for possessing these controlled substances. And the idea and the theory is that if you invest in treatment centers, addiction, education, you'll actually have less incidents of addiction and what would have formerly been drug crimes. And then you actually see less demand and less consumption. And anecdotally, it's worked like that in Amsterdam. And I'm really excited to see this laboratory kind of that Oregon has become. And we'll see if they can have less addiction, less recidivism in terms of people just constantly going back and doing it and getting out of the drug addiction cycle. Then I think that it could be the type of laboratory experiment that sweeps the nation. And maybe we can get rid of this mass incarceration epidemic that's in our country.
Well, let me ask you this, Chris, as an attorney. Isn't most of the violent crime that's related to drugs the actual distribution aspect of it? Because that's where the actual money occurs, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you're going to nip that in the bud because where's the profit margins are going to be way less if it's decriminalized because the risk isn't there as much anymore for the people that are consuming. And they may be able to buy it from people that aren't necessarily these really violent cartels. You're also seeing that it's good to make clear that decriminalization of use and consumption does not mean that manufacturing and selling are now legal in Oregon. That is still illegal. It's not like a total free-for-all there, but I do think it will reduce crime overall and violent crime, absolutely.
I think the states need to make it where that's going to be possible, because in California, at least last time I went to a trade show, they were still saying that there's more illicit sales of marijuana in California because the tax structures are so high. I'd love to hear from our guests on this subject, and then I definitely want to hear from the medical view.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, the black, or I don't like to call it that, the illicit market in California is thriving. The prices are a lot cheaper in a lot of cases than walking into the dispensary and paying, of course, our 27% excise tax plus your local sales tax, plus there's additional taxes in some cases. So when you're talking about 40% tax in a state that has always had a very accessible cannabis market, it definitely puts the legal operators at a disadvantage where we are overtaxed out of the normal psyche even of, a San Francisco shopper that has 3 or 4 gray market salesmen that can give them, exactly what they want at a discounted rate versus going into a storefront and paying that exorbitant cost. Our goal for the legal side is not to end the gray market, because we know that that's impossible, but if we can just establish tax breaks over time or quickly to reduce the urge for people to shop in that gray market, because right now it's clearly thriving.
The government just needs to make it more appealing to sell it legally than to sell it illegally. I don't know what they need to do that, but they need to do that. Christian, what do you think on a medical degree? Is it good to decriminalize hard drug use?
Absolutely. I would agree with Chris's perspective and add to the fact that really, since time immemorial, humans have experimented with psychoactive substances. So that at some point we arbitrarily made a decision sometime in the 1900s that it was deemed unacceptable to utilize these types of substances, and then we started to have this ever-increasing regulation and criminalization of that behavior, when a lot of these individuals would otherwise, be acting in some positive way had they easier access to enjoy these. And then for those that really fell under some degree of addiction, that we would have services to take care of that. The idea that it's been focused and transformed, probably, since the 1920s up until now, progressively worse until now we're seeing a bit of a backlash, which is encouraging, that we just accept the fact that people are going to utilize these substances. And why make these distinctions rather than try to provide a safe opportunity for individuals to use such substances, and for those that develop dependence, to treat the dependence and remove the criminality, remove the destruction of lives for individuals that want to experiment when they're young, and then they have no options thereafter when they suffer through the criminal system.
So interesting discussion for sure. I went to Portugal about 5 years ago, and Portugal, I believe, was the first country in the world that decriminalized all hard drugs. And I went there with great interest. When I go around to festivals and things, no matter where I am, what country, what state, I'm generally approached for buying drugs. And in Portugal, Fat Boy Slim happened to be doing a big rave in the middle of the city, and so it was free. I went out, and I was expecting to be approached constantly for drugs, and I was probably watching the audience to see if that was happening more than I was the show. I was enjoying the music, but I was watching the audience, and I found one guy out of maybe 2,000 people that had a bag, and he had everything in the bag, and if you approached him, you could get it, but he wasn't really clear. But Portugal's belief was that if you get caught with something, multiple times, they're going to push you into counseling. If you appear to be addicted, you're going to get counseling, and they don't believe that that's a criminal activity, and that's how we handle alcohol. So unless you're drinking and driving, but same thing with drugs and driving, certainly shouldn't do that. But if you're just at a party and you're high on something else, is that worthy of going to jail for? And I just think our prisons are full of people that shouldn't be there.
I concur.
Okay, well, good discussion this morning. We're going to go off to a commercial break, and Marie will be with us when we come back. See you in just a minute.
Hello, hello. Here on my lunch run in the middle of the heat where I get my break really quick after training clients and leading some classes. I am taking my Simply Satisfy. It is 3 sprays, organic hemp. Next one is my Simply Start. You can take it twice a day or once a day. I already took one morning dose. I'm now taking my afternoon dose. One little yummy organic hemp. Check them out. Simply Generous. Helicopter. All right, time to go train and run down the hill. Bye-bye.
Well, welcome back. I'm excited to introduce our first guest, Marie Montmarquet. She is with MD Numbers. So she comes from a wide background of cannabis experience, which has really put her in the national spotlight. She is a BA in political science and psychology from the University of Tennessee. And over the last decade, she has created several successful businesses and is an advocate for social justice and equality and equity in the industry. So thank you so much for joining us, first of all. But tell us a little bit about MD Numbers and the family of businesses you have tied into with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. So MD Numbers is an establishment of 3 companies that my brother and I put together. We started in 2015 with Marie's Deliverables, which is just a cannabis delivery company based on the peninsula in the Bay Area. And then we established a farm in Salinas, which is 50,000 square feet, where we cultivate, process, distribute underneath a wholesale facility, which is what my background is. That's MD Farms. And then we also have a distribution and consulting business called Legacy Coterie that focuses on sales strategy, compliance, distribution, and those other aspects.
Well, you have the best background ever. I mean, that looks so beautiful. Oh my. So tell me, what type of work do you do as an advisor to Success Center's Equity for Industry program?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something I'm really passionate about. I feel just extremely blessed to be able to have time to give back. And we've spent, the last 5 years building these businesses. And I've spent about the last year and a half with the ability to have time to help Success Centers, which is a nonprofit based in San Francisco. And we host workshops. I work with a super amazing lady, Angela White, and we do workshops for the equity community that are based around boot camps, how to create a business, how to manage your business, things around operations, how to manage a cash-only business, how to create your business plan, executive summary, financials, things that you need to know in order to raise money. Just trying to put together a lot of the necessities that are not necessarily available for the equity community that wants to engage in owning a business. And we also do a lot of workforce development there, just making sure that those that were impacted by the war on drugs have the opportunity to be employed in the community, and not only that, but hopefully be able to work their way up into the management aspect.
A common question that I've asked people in California, and you seem the perfect person to ask this, is what do you think about California's social equity program? Is it the right program, or if not, what would you do to change it to make it better?
Right. I think that I can appreciate that we have one, of course. I think that's the first step. Every city should have an equity program. California created our equity program. We didn't necessarily fund it at the same time as we created open permitting. What I mean by that is the equity community essentially is 3 years behind if they were waiting for money to open from the state. So obviously, getting a 3-year head start from corporate cannabis got a 3-year head start on the equity community in a lot of ways. So to answer your question, I think that San Francisco, Oakland, LA, we definitely have, all of us have our own issues with equity, but the most important thing is that we have an equity program and we are working on funding that equity program, which is extremely, extremely crucial. I mean, I personally just believe before a city is going to permit and allow corporate cannabis to come in and make all the money, they should essentially set aside at least 33 to 50% of the permits that are going to be allowed in that city for equity. And we don't see that right now in every city. We only see that in some of the big cities. So I definitely think that that's something that needs to change in California and everywhere. But there's a lot of cities that are coming online in California that don't have equity programs and will just, give 6 storefronts or 10 storefronts to the big guys. So we definitely need to be aware of that. We're 3 years behind and we're not necessarily protected. There's a lot of predatory contracts, as well as a lot of new cities coming online that are not offering an equity program, which is very counterintuitive to what we're doing here, right?
So Marie, what would you say your central mission is at MD Numbers?
Absolutely. I would say, my brother and I started this business, and I always just had to say, pinch me. They let me sell weed legally. And that always evolved into how many businesses can we create? And now it's turned into just a mission for showing what can be done with a lot of hard work, with a lot of the interactions that we have with nonprofits. And we do a tour to our farm every month for those that are interested in cultivation, where they can just ask us anything we want. So our mission is really just to continue to build the empire that we have, but use it as a live experience for the community and the equity community specifically, just to show it is possible. If you come in and you work really hard, you can build these things. And my brother and I own our businesses outright. We've only done hard cash deals. We've never given any equity to anyone, and it's one of the things that we're most proud of, and it allows us to have a lot more flexibility on the way that we run our companies, of course. So all of these things are part of our mission, and being able to establish the experience and show what we've done and how we can help other people achieve the same thing.
Marie, what are some of the necessary changes for increasing that type of advocacy and equity in the cannabis industry as a whole?
That's a great question. I think a lot of times when I'm asked this question, I just like to say we should use what we have already. We have tax incentives that we give lots of big businesses, you name them, right? Real estate incentives that we give tons of corporations, even, individuals. So right now, the changes that I would love to see are establishing some tax credits or real estate credits for those who are working with the equity community. One thing that we all know is if you're coming from the war on drugs and you had to prove that you don't make a lot of money and that you live in very specific neighborhoods that have been impacted by the war on drugs, chances are you don't have an extra $250,000 to secure property. And when you're going around to secure property, you meet a lot of landlords that aren't necessarily friendly or overly friendly to the equity community, but they would be very friendly if there was a tax incentive or a tax credit potentially to help equity. And one of the things that we struggle with, of course, is all cannabis permits are tied to a location. So if we don't have money to secure the location and pay rent for 18 months or 24 months prior to opening and doing $1 million build out or what have you, then of course we're going to be put at a disadvantage. So using what we have, using the real estate credits, using the tax incentives that we already have, going back to a little bit what I said before, making sure if we're going to permit corporate cannabis, we also fund and establish an equity program in that city. We cannot continue. There's a city right now on the peninsula about 15 minutes south of San Francisco Airport. It's called Redwood City. It's in San Mateo County. San Mateo County right now is a dry county. It's like Jack Daniels and Shelbyville, Tennessee. Okay, you cannot buy any cannabis from a storefront in San Mateo County, one of the largest counties, Silicon Valley, tons of disposable income. Redwood City said they're going to permit 6 storefronts. In the entire study, which was I think 12 pages, there was literally one sentence about equity, and it was a blurb just saying, we might consider some equity stuff. My issue is just that we can't be an afterthought. When you're thinking about these cities that are going to be taking in hundreds of millions of dollars from corporate cannabis and just really sweeping under the rug the whole war on drugs thing. Like, what? War on drugs? No? Okay, cool. So, we really need to make sure that we're establishing equity in every city. It shouldn't just be democratic cities or liberal cities, of course. Every city has put people in jail for cannabis and are still putting people in jail for cannabis right now. So we definitely have to change that. Another rounded out, standardizing some of the contracts is super important. You know, we have about, I don't know, 300 equity storefronts in San Francisco, and every single one of them have a different contract. All of them have different board seat, like how the board seats will be arranged. All of them have different financials and how you're accessing those financials. So making sure that we're not sending our equity applicants out to engage in super predatory contracts, which essentially is already what we have going on, because we have one person that has the paper saying I can't open a storefront and no one else can, and that person is meeting with a corporate conglomerate, and that corporate conglomerate is, you know, we're going to give you this and we're going to take this, and at the end of the day it's very predatory for someone that doesn't have money, that comes from a disadvantaged community, to then go partner with, you know, a very rich conglomerate, and basically they're at their mercy.
Well, thank you so much, Marie. I've actually learned a lot about this. For some reason in my mind, I was thinking it was California state law that required the social equity programs. But now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back, it was Los Angeles that I was sitting in a conference with that was talking about it. But it sounds like it probably does need to be state mandated and not done city by city. But thank you very much, Marie, for being on. You can get Marie's contact information at our website, thebuddingreport.com. Please go look up any of our guests, contact them. They love to hear from you. That's what they're here for, is to make networking connections and to educate. So we'll be right back after this brief message.
Hello, hello, coming to you from the outdoors where I do my heat training, and I did my repeats on the hills. It's actually pretty empty, but it's kind of close to 90 degrees. So that's when I squeeze in whenever I can. But I'm actually here to share what Simply Start, Simply Satisfy is. So this organic hemp oil, this is the serum Simply Start, and you can take it twice a day or once. I already took both of them in this morning, so now it's lunchtime. Real quick and easy, yummy, delicious, 30 calories. The other one is Simply Satisfy. So it's a spray, and also 3 sprays. You could do it once a day or twice a day. Again, I did it this morning. I'm doing it now at lunch. It helps you take care of your health and wellness. So learn more about them. Remember, 3 simple changes on how you can incorporate into your life. You can learn more at the link below. So stay safe and keep moving, keep training, and take care of your spirit, mind, and body.
And we're back once again, and this time we're welcoming Maya Roffler. She is with the executive director of Canna One. So she's got 10 years of experience in the field, in events and trade shows, cannabis and CBD advocate, and well as hosting her own podcast. So we're very excited to have you here, first of all, Maya, and I want to hear a little bit more about who is Canna One.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here too. Canna One is a B2B trade show supporting everybody in the cannabis industries. We were founded a few years ago, and we were a live event company. Of course, that came to a screeching halt when COVID hit. Many of our competitors had the same issue. So we really had to go back to the drawing board in March and April and think of how we were going to survive this and also be innovative and, you know, help everybody in the cannabis industry and be a little bit different, because we were having live events in markets like Vegas. Our last live event was in Chicago when legalization was happening in Illinois. So we decided to pivot in a different way. We did go virtual, so all of our events will be virtual until the end of 2021, but definitely until then, maybe 2022. We're not sure yet. Obviously, a lot is riding on the results of the election and how everything goes. But yeah, so we went virtual, and we decided not to do like 3 or 4 events a year and just kind of keep it all clumped together. We decided to go really niche. So our events are focused in specific areas. So we just had an event in September that was focused heavily on CBD and hemp. but on the health and beauty area. And then in October, our event was our Canna Grow Harvest, and it was focused on cultivation. And we have several events coming up that are really, really niche. So that's how we're kind of separating ourselves in the market.
I love it. Before I ask my related question, we didn't hear from you on your opinion of the decriminalization of hard drugs in Oregon. What's your opinion on that?
So we're actually based, our company, we have people all over the country, but we're based here in Georgia. So we're just hoping to legalize, weed at this point. So we're way behind the curve on all of that. So obviously me being an advocate for CBD, hemp, and definitely marijuana, being a user myself, and I think it's a positive thing, definitely, but we're way behind here in Georgia. So I think it's great, but we're just hoping for weed at this point.
Well, we're with you. We're here in Texas, so we're as behind as you are. And,
I heard that.
And wanting some marijuana legalization. You talked about having different areas that you focus on. What type of different areas are your focuses in the upcoming future? And I love that concept.
Yeah, I mean, we really had to find something that set us apart because we were so new. I mean, I come from over 10 years of experience in trade shows, so I'm not new to trade shows. And then our CEO and founder, she comes from over 20 years, going on 25 years. So we're not new there, but we're newer in the cannabis area of trade shows. So we really wanted to set ourselves apart. So coming up this month, November 17th and 18th, we have our Cannavest show. This one will be domestic focused. It's USA. Next year, we have several other shows coming up too. We have our healthcare show coming up. We have a food and beverage show. We have our Women Grow show, which of course supports women in cannabis, which is very near and dear to my heart. We have our Cannavest Europe, because obviously investing in Europe is very different than here in the US. And we have a big BizCon show too, which will be really encompassing of all of these niches that we focus on. So that's how we've decided to tackle this and look at this. We also have an operations show, and we find that it really serves our exhibitors as well as our speakers and our attendees really well.
Well, you kind of answered the question that I was going to pose to you already, so I'll throw out a different one. How do individuals come to learn about your organization? What kind of marketing efforts do you employ for all these different types of areas that you focus on?
Yeah, great question. So obviously I'm on podcasts quite often. So a lot of marketing like this. We've done some unique marketing, like coming on podcasts, like networking with different individuals. We actually had Tommy Chong at our last event. So really networking with individuals in, out there that are important to us and are advocates for us. That's been key for us. But also our social media presence is huge, reaching out to individuals on social media to support us, exchanging information that way. But we've also created our own social network. It's called The Nation, and I encourage all of you to join it. So throughout the entire year, you can network with individuals there. And we've also created sub-niches within The Nation too. So we have a women network within there. We also have a diversity network in there. We have an investing group in there. So we're also using that as a way to get the word out about our show. And if you join The Nation, you can also attend all of our shows for free. So we're using some unique ways to get the message out, not just, ads and things like that. We also created our own network.
So was it the COVID-19 epidemic that caused y'all to pivot to virtual events, or was there a different decision point that led to all that?
Oh, 100%. And it's done that for everybody. But I think, in my opinion, I think this is the future of events. I think even as we see things return to whatever our new normal will be, whether that is, a vaccine coming or whatever happens, hopefully sooner than later. When live events do happen, there will be some kind of hybrid. I just think that's what people feel safe with. In addition to the fact that we're seeing higher numbers because there's this chunk of expense that doesn't have to happen for people to attend, and they can attend from the comfort of their home. And there's all these additional things as well. They can access this information on demand for months afterwards, depending on how your show is set up. And there's a high education piece too with these events, where some events in the past, that's always been a focus for us, but other events haven't always focused on that. And that's really key now. The content is so important, which I know you guys know from hosting a podcast. It's very key and important now.
Well, I'm excited that you had the option, because obviously we all kind of had to figure out what the new was going to be until a vaccine or herd immunity or whatever is going to happen here in the coming days and months. But to trigger back, to just kind of switch back to doing these events, is it set up like a traditional trade show? Are you bringing in vendors that are setting up? Are you charging an admission at the door to bring people in from across the country? And are there breakout sessions? I mean, what's sort of the setup? Can you walk us through? We've talked about the virtual. Can you walk us through what it was like prior to COVID?
Yeah, I get this question all the time. How was it? What to expect now? So it was a traditional trade show before, but we had our own, feel and vibe to it. It was a traditional trade show. We went from city to city. We really wanted to follow the legalization, but then also go to the traditional cities like Vegas. You're always going to have a big turnout there for events, and we'll return there. We're already booked in 2022 there, but we're thinking perhaps end of 2021 with the way things are looking today. Fingers crossed. But it was more traditional, trade show. You walked in, there was an event, we had speakers booked throughout the day. You could engage with different individuals, and we had a happy hour event each day of the event.
See, that's what you can't replace. Like that. I mean, honestly, for me, I love going to trade shows because of the community,
I do too.
the interaction, the contacts you make. And so that's why, as much as I'm glad we have this, I don't want to lose those opportunities. So I'm glad, like you just mentioned the happy hour. I'm like, oh, I remember those.
I know. And so for us, when we were picking a platform, so in March and April, it was really important to us, coming from that world, that we picked a platform that felt a lot like that environment, because that's what our people wanted, and could mimic that, but also felt really comfortable for them to navigate, but then also kept the information on demand, but then also allowed for a happy hour. We host a happy hour at every single event, with the exception of our investment event, because we're finding that that's not something that is really needed. But we do have a kickoff in the morning. We do a yoga CBD every morning, with the exception of our investment event. And then we have video networking throughout the day. We have a traditional exhibit hall. So we have exhibitors that you can visit and do video chatting with. So we really wanted that personal piece where you could speak and engage in whatever way you wanted to, whether it was the chat function where you're just typing and chatting, you exchange business cards, you actually get on a video and speed network. You attend the happy hour and you can get on video and, bring your cocktail or bring your CBD or bring your, weed, whatever you want to bring, and join us for our happy hour, and we give away prizes and you can network. So we really wanted to capture that feeling, and that was really important to us. And we truly feel like we did that on the platform we selected.
Well, Maya, I don't want you to give up on the social for the investor platforms. I went to one in San Francisco, and it's unlike any investor platform I ever went to. They had a big bowl full of rolled joints, and people were smoking throughout the day. And by the time night came around, everybody was lighting up and having a good time. And it was a good way to meet other investors, a good way to get to really know the people that you might invest into. Well, Maya, I appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited about what you're doing with the Nation, I believe you called it, for your social media channel. That's so exciting. How long has that been going? How many people do you have on it?
It has not even been open for a month, which is so exciting. And we have a couple hundred people. I think we're approaching 1,000. So I'll definitely include the link, and all of you should join. It's really exciting.
Thank you. I definitely plan on joining. Please join her social media platform and have a way to contact like-minded people and talk with like-minded people, and maybe it won't be full of political posts like Facebook is, because I was really excited about the election being over, so people wouldn't need to be talking about it so much. But that's not the case. We're going to be talking about it for a while now. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today on the Budding Report. Please, again, look us up at thebuddingreport.com. Get a hold of Marie, get a hold of Maya, sign up on thenation.com, and I'll see you there. But contact them, network with them, do business with them. Next week, our guests include Elizabeth Mack, RN of Holistic Caring, and David Goldknife of Remedy Rolls. Sounds like a good show. And again, no samples for us, Melissa.
Well, if we could get marijuana on the ballot in Texas, and maybe we could start getting them. I don't know.
So I'm not going to be live in the studio the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be calling in with a very different background, and my background, should the lighting be appropriate, will be real. I'm going to be at my condo in Hawaii, so Hawaii's opened up a little bit, and they're letting people in with a test without the 14-day quarantine. The sad part about it is, you know, I'm a big foodie like you are, Melissa, and I've looked up every single one of my favorite restaurants, and out of like 8, 1 is open and only limited hours. So it's going to be a little different than being here in Texas, where pretty much everything is open. But again, thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next week. And again, me being in Hawaii, see you next week on the Budding Report. Bye.